Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for another episode of Move Forward or Move Over. We have an additional panelist joining us as a guest today. Lexi, thank you for being here with all of us. And we're just going to go ahead and jump right in and get started. We try to keep these short and sweet and on time so that you can take these little pieces and then put it to use today. So for moving forward and continuing to keep a vigilant eye on opportunities in today's market, episode 4 is tackling future planning and using real estate to not just build wealth, but to also provide a nest egg of options. So each of us are at different stages in our life with our families and our children. So we're taking a closer look at what this looks like in various stages and taking into consideration the changing needs of families for you and for your clients. So specifically, we're focusing on how real estate planning can impact college planning and future financial burdens. So there's an abundance of research that has gone out recently about investment opportunities in today's student housing market. So over the past decade, college enrollment has exceeded the on-campus housing growth. So as a result, college housing costs and rents have skyrocketed. According to research.com, student housing demand will continue to rise as college-age students are also continuing to increase. In addition, there is a huge untapped market for graduate and professor housing. So with most universities, they're primarily focused on catering to that undergrad population. So considering housing and rents can be an expense that far exceeds what you had planned for, personally, I had this eye-opening experience. And honestly, looking back, I really wish that I had looked at this future planning in a different way beyond just looking at 529 college plans. So as I have found with 2 of my college-age sons regarding the housing data, many campuses were unprepared when enrollment growth surged following COVID. So this led to that increased demand for the student housing. There are 380 million students that are projected to be in higher education by the year 2030. So in addition to this, the recent years have shown that student housing has emerged as the most in-demand asset class in commercial real estate as well as residential. So today, looking at the looking at the residential element of this, for myself, we ended up purchasing a condo last minute. It was truly pure luck as a result of the student housing shortage, and there not being student housing for my oldest son, who was going to be a transfer student. This actually led to an incredible opportunity, and we were able to rent the 2 additional rooms, which I had hundreds of inquiries in one weekend. As soon as I posted the rooms that were available, I had so many people reach out. I felt bad. It was hard for me to even respond to everyone. But this really helped balance the housing costs and keeping my son's rent at a manageable amount, and also the consistency of him not having to move and having that place to be for the remainder of his college years. So currently, the similar units in the same exact location just sold. They just sold 3 of them, and they range from 60 to 65,000 more than what we paid just 8 months ago. When my son graduates, we can then choose to do a 1031 for the property into something that my daughter will then be looking to have for housing when she's in school, or continue to rent or look at other options that are available. So for all of us today, our panelists are going to share a little bit more about their own planning strategy for college and housing and how to take this situation into an advantage and things to consider, like I said, not just for yourselves personally, but also looking at your clients and the ages of their families and changing dynamics and what that can look like for them. So I'm going to hand that off to Kirsten and share a little bit more of how she has taken this opportunity to benefit her family.
So like Raquel, I happened to just stumble across to this and was fortunate enough to be in the position to be able to implement something during COVID, when my daughter transferred home from college, ours was more impacted by the rent. I mean, rents were just going through the roof. And therefore, I looked at the numbers and was like, why doesn't she just buy a house, or we buy a house, and then she gets a couple roommates and save some money, again, that rent factor. So we did just that and bought her a 4-bedroom house, and she's had all the rooms rented. She manages it herself. It gave her some responsibility. We're now a year and a half into it, and we're ready to convert that. She's been there a year and a half, so we're ready now to make the next move. She's done with college and she wants to get another house, and we will have that as a rental, and then she will get a new house. And so not only did it satisfy the rental factor of her in college and help us on that end, the financial end, but now she's building her own wealth, just like she's seen me build my wealth over time, and get those additional doors. So I have both of my kids on the same track. My son's not in college, but still he needed, obviously, eventually we'll need a place to go. So we just closed on his first home in January, and we'll just exponentially grow. My advice would be, is the education piece. It's scary. We think that, how are we going to do this? I just took the plunge and just jumped, but really educating yourself, educating, family, educating your clients, whoever that might be. And it's never too late to start. So Raquel and I have the older kids, whereas the rest of you guys have younger kids on the panel, but it's never too late to start. And really, the flexibility that generational wealth gives you is key here.
I agree. It's one of those things that when you look at it from different perspectives, it can look differently for that time period of your life. For us, having the older kids, it was a necessity in order for us to be able to support what was needed financially, but also give them some of that responsibility and tackling that property management and growing in some of those skills that they don't learn in the classroom that are just part of life and so invaluable. So for us, looking at it, it was an immediate, and now kind of passing it down the line and talking with Shandy and Megan and Kayla and Lexi, the different stages with having younger children and part of their planning processes.
I have a question for you ladies. Now, with your older kids, are you adding them onto the title? Are you purchasing it with them, or are you purchasing as your own investment?
So that's a really good question. So for me, I did add my son to the title after. Okay. So I did not have him on the signing when we closed escrow. It was after the fact. So he is technically an owner on the property. And so from insurance perspectives, it was also better for us to do that, having it being owner and renter versus full rental property.
Got it.
And I've done it both ways, Shandy. I've done it with my kids on, and then I also just purchased the property. And then when I buy the property, then I do a cost segregation. Therefore, that frees up my money. And this is getting a little deeper than this conversation now, but that frees up my money the next year in order to buy another property when I cost seg my properties. But I've done it both ways. So my son's on the title, and he went through, unlike Raquel, he went through the whole process, and I helped him build his credit. My daughter already has credit. My son did not. So I put him on with me and just co-signed for him.
Okay.
In order to help build his credit. So everything looks different every time.
Thanks.
So Shandy, do you want to chime in and start with kind of your stage in this game?
Sure. So my son is 8 years old and my daughter is 4 years old, and we haven't really started thinking about college housing or how we are going to tackle that. This panel has really brought that to light for us. So I think originally my idea is we would purchase something when they were getting ready to enter into college, not knowing where exactly they're going to go. But I think now, after speaking to you ladies and having a better understanding of the options, we probably will look at housing near the university here. And then in the case that they don't end up attending UNR and they go out of state or go somewhere else, or they want to live at home, we would just continue using that property as a rental. I have worked with clients that have purchased near university for their kids to go ahead and move into and to help kind of offset the costs with roommates. But it got to the point where rents just here in Reno have gotten so high that their college students can no longer afford to live in the house near the university because the college professor that they're renting to now was willing to pay a premium for the home because it was so conveniently located. So again, we all hear this phrase all the time, but location, 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 like it needs to be convenient, not only for a college student, but for the professor, because at the end of the day, the professor probably doesn't want to drive to work. He just wants to be able to walk to school and do that. Whereas if your kid can get cheaper rent, a freeway exit down the road, that's probably going to be a better option for them. And then you're still able to cash flow the property at a higher rate. So I don't have a plan, guys. I'm working on it.
Well, and the biggest thing too is it doesn't have to be for the college student either. Not everybody goes to college, and therefore, I mean, prices are just going to continue to increase. So
Right.
you're positioning your kids or yourself to have options down the road for
Right.
when they move out, when they get married, if you have a property that gives them a stepping stone to make that next transition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I'm consulting with investor clients, we always have a plan of attack of how we are going to purchase the property. It's just as important to have a conversation and to have an understanding of how you're going to exit out of that strategy, whether you're utilizing a 1031 exchange and you're just exchanging up until you eventually convert it to your own primary residence when the time is right, or you're just going to go ahead and sell it outright, pay the capital gains, depreciation recapture to make sure that you have an exit out of the plan as well.
For sure.
And Kirsten, that brings up a good point too. For like me, I was just simple. I have 2 kids. I have 2 investment properties. We bought our first investment property for kids before we even had kids, knowing that was our education fund. So buying it and trying to slowly pay it off. So by the time if they don't go to school, we have that for that. Wherever they go, 1031 exchange it, those type of things. But being on this panel definitely has helped bring into sight of like the different strategies, of course, where mine were just basic strategies at the beginning. So remember that too when you're talking to clients, like read your clients and decide on, what direction. It doesn't have to be, there's no one size fits all.
Correct.
Well, and Megan, like you're talking about, if they don't end up going to school, that's the one downside of a 529 plan is that it does have to be used for educational purposes where you have flexibility regardless of what that situation looks like for your children in the future to be able to take advantage of the property that you have built the equity in for whatever those future needs look like.
We have a similar philosophy as Megan and her family. We have 1 child, but we have 2 investment properties. And the first one was kind of the accidental where we were going to move up our house but wanted to take advantage of the low payment of our current house. So we decided, we would offset the new house payment by renting our old house. So that's kind of how we started getting into investing. And although us being in it, we hear it, see it, witness it all the time with our clients or other agents or other investors or whatnot, that it took me a long time to convince my husband and make him a believer that this was a way to build wealth. And so that's how we kind of started our journey. And then after we had our first child, we had the similar conversation that, hey, this has worked for us. Why wouldn't we do the same thing and, build a college fund or at least, some sort of fund to get our kid on their feet once they would graduate college or once they were out of high school or whatnot. So we purchased our second at the beginning of last year. So.
Well, now it's going to be the fun part. Lexi's story is really, really
Yes.
cool to hear.
Yes, I was just gonna say, and Lexi's got a whole another twist on it, which is it's gonna be great for everyone to hear.
You again, I'm Lexi Brecky, and I'm excited to speak about the experience because honestly, all the things you guys are saying, I'm like a child of that. My parents did the same thing for my sisters and I, that we started at a early age investing with them, and it really wasn't, not that it wasn't optional, but it was just like, this is what we're doing and I want you to be a part of it. You're gonna learn responsibility and you're gonna learn how to set up your bills and pay them, and your name is going on the title, and we'll help you with the down payment, but you're going through the whole process. And you make enough money at whatever jobs that we were doing through college and different things that we really kind of like filled in the blanks. It was like, here's our job, here's our income, here's their down payment, here's closing costs. So like I really learned at an early age. I think I was like 18, 19 on my first deal with the family. I invested with them and I didn't even live there. It was just I had extra money from something, and they were like, well, if you want to invest in it with us, you can have 10%. And then when we sell it, we'll do it again. I said, oh,
That's a good deal.
my phone bill, So it was very clear in the beginning, but now knowing that I've been doing that, since I was 19, and that was a while ago. I mean, I graduated college in the early 2000s. I realized that this was just a way of life that I was kind of taught. And I know that other people were doing it, but I just don't feel like it could be, it could just be shared more. And I thought everybody was doing it, and I thought it was like a normal thing. You know what I mean? Because that's what my experience was. And my friends would like live with us, or we'd like rotate houses. We kind of joked as like mortgages. We would just, my sister and I would be owner occupied for the 2 years. We would do all the updates to the returned. So we would do bathrooms, floor, paint, usually the kitchen if it needed it, and try to keep some of that charm. And we've done it all over Reno and Sparks, and I think maybe about less than a dozen, but I mean, we've been doing it a while. But then now I have a 3-year-old little boy, so in the last even 5 years, I just started like renting my house again or doing different things that I know how to do as being like resourceful. But I just really want more people to understand that it's not just for people with kids. Friends can go in on these deals together. There's all kinds of ways to rent. It doesn't even have to be around school. I still Airbnb. We have a little place in Tahoe that we actually been doing midterm rentals because of the rules. But there's a lot of hospitals and the schools up there. I mean, you'll be surprised if you really try to match up the areas. You really can maximize what it is you're trying to do. And the midterm rentals are great because you find someone good and they're going to pay, and your place is taken care of. And if you do shared, you still have access to your places. So it's just I've done all kinds of different ways and helped my mom and my dad navigate all of it. And my mom's taught me a lot. I mean, I feel like at one point, I think I was like in high school, they had like a dozen properties. It was well before the rules of like property managing and having the licensing and all the rules. But I was always really impressed because, she managed my dad's back office. He's a chiropractor, and then she ran all these properties, and, she was the landlord and all the things. And I learned a lot, and I just feel like I share that with more people. And I want, people to see that exactly how Kayla says and how you started. Sometimes it's by mistake because you're like, hey, I want to buy another house. Could I keep mine? And there's a certain formula. They work with great lenders and they show you what to do to get ready to do that. And it's kind of a interesting position to be a realtor, because in my mind, I want everybody to hold on to their properties, but I wouldn't be able to do business if people didn't sell their house or sell their properties. So I have a weird way that I advise people. I'm like, well, as your friend, this, but as your realtor, this. So it's just, I want everybody to, have that experience. And I think that more people can do it. And the more knowledge that they have and the more resources and more people connecting, I think that it can be done a lot more. And that just creates more business for all of us.
Right. And Lexi, I think you touched on two things. One is truly having that key lender partner to help you with that strategy, because depending on how you're using that investment property, whether you have your child in it versus you're renting it out to your child and others, what that looks like and the best way to position. I know, like I had mentioned, mine was a fire drill because I wasn't planning and it was just out of need. That in hindsight, I wish that I would have strategized more and taken that time in advance to truly plan out what that looked like. And the other thing that you mentioned, I think is awesome too, when you do have your children in it or you're doing it with somebody else, having them have some ownership, like you said, doing upgrades and different ways of updating the property for them to truly have that ownership in it and be able to increase your equity that you're growing in it for those little things that can be done to just boost that curb appeal, anything and everything around that that you learned along the way too.
Right. One of my favorites was my first condo that was, my deal. And I literally was in it. Like we scraped the popcorn ceiling, we ripped out the floor, we redid the tile. I mean, I was in it like full overalls, like, before the big shows. I could have had a show. That it really was fun though. And I did learn that, you put the hard work in and saving on labor and different things and like really having the professionals come in and have the electricians. Luckily, like I said, my dad's a chiropractor, so there's a lot of patients and they do a lot of trade and we know a lot of contractors and all the things. So I mean everything was done to code, all the things right, but it was just nice to be a part of it and watch it and then really see the return, because then we would just do it again every 2 years, owner occupied, same thing, pull the money out, either split it and do it again, and everybody had their profit or what they put into it, and we really kept really good track of it. So I feel like sometimes if anybody's upset about something or splitting something not right, it's like we really just go back to the basics, back to the numbers. What did we pay? What was the down payment? How long did you live there? The mortgage times 24. Like it was just a simple formula that anybody can do. So I think people should start sooner.
Yeah, and there is no age limit. There's no age limit with it. Do you know what I mean? I know people who have put properties in their kids' names and their kids are like 2 and 4 years old. So the sooner you get them going, if you're able, and then you can exponentially grow from that.
So if with your clients and looking at some of those future planning needs, look beyond just that primary residence with your clients, but also talking with some of these strategies with them if they have families. And some of the trend of what is currently being seen, like I had mentioned, the housing shortage in and around universities. There is an abundance of professors coming over from international locations that are desperately seeking places to live in and around the universities. Number of graduate students have increased tremendously as well. So I know can be this hesitation of people saying, I don't want to rent to college students. That sounds like a complete and total nightmare. But there are other opportunities for people looking for housing right around the university as well. So something to really, truly take into consideration. And another, I know one of you mentioned too, in and around hospitals with traveling nurses. So having those investment properties for the purpose of your children, but in the interim, renting under the cases for places close to hospitals for traveling nurses is a great way to be able to get started in that process. So today we really just wanted to highlight in that future planning, looking at things a little bit differently in terms of investment planning and how that connects to future family needs and ways that you can structure that to help offset this tremendous cost later on down the line. There's nothing about children that is inexpensive. And I will say when my children were younger, I kept thinking, okay, after childcare, after preschool, after diapers, after all these things, costs are going to go down. And I was so clueless. My costs are way more now that they're at adult age than they were at children age.
Yep, cars, houses, the whole 9 yards. It's way more expensive. Insurance.
Everything, literally everything. So hopefully you can take today's class as something to really consider and talking with your clients, other ways to be able to talk about the market and what's happening and ways for your clients to participate in today's market and plan for themselves. In a future class, we're going to talk about some things with lending and ways that there are alternative methods for others to help fund down payments and whatnot for your children to be able to get into the housing game at a younger age. Ladies, do any of you have anything else? Then I'm going to open it up. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to just chime in and ask away. Anyone? Everyone's going to go jump into buying investment properties for their children, their grandchildren, nieces, nephews, all of the above. So I think one of the biggest things for Kirsten and I is that we both wish we would have started sooner.
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. I should have had my husband on this call with us.
Right. You can give him the recording, Shannon.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what? I had to go through this with my husband when I had to really help him see that this was a positive, and I wasn't sure he was going to go with it. When I started showing him what the rents were and the various locations, proximity to school, and what that was going to look at over the remainder of the 3 years of college, that kind of changed his tune.
Absolutely.
I know that Raquel, you said, having a strategy and planning, all of that's really important, but sometimes you need your back against the wall if you're financially ready and be pressured almost into, a good deal or opportunity or situation to kind of make that jump. I know for us, both of the investments that we have we were financially ready, but weren't quite ready to, or didn't feel ready to jump, and had our backs against the wall and just did.
Yep. You're right. Totally right, Kayla.
Yeah. And now I feel like I'm playing catch up because we didn't plan when they were younger, and I wish we did, but now I'm like full throttle. I'm like, game on, let's go.
And I will just add one other thing. For my son, it's allowed him to grow a lot more and taking that ownership. And he's now projecting out and looking, okay, when I graduate, I don't want to have a roommate. After having roommates for several years, now he's looking at it from a different perspective and what that's going to look like for him to get into his first property. So it's kind of given him a different outlook too.
Well, that reminds me, I think we had mentioned it before our call, is that a lot of times people think scaling up. So you have like a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and you want, okay, I want to do a 3-bedroom, 2 bath, and you keep scaling up. But you can also buy smaller. You can also get the, another 2-bedroom, 1 bath, or a studio in a, prime location that you just have intention to, buy to rent. So you don't always have to go bigger. So let people know that you can still start something smaller, and you don't necessarily need that 20%. So that's why it's good to have those conversations with your lender on what are your real opportunities, what way can it go, and they can kind of show you all the different opportunities of, staying under 400,000 or whatever it is, and just say, what can I do, and work backwards instead of how much do I need to do this. So just really evaluate the situation and your numbers to see what could I do if I kept my house, and let them do the math. And it's eye-opening. So I think everybody should do that.
Well, and the other thing too is multiple doors too. A lot of people don't know that 4 doors or less is just your basic loan. You don't have to have a commercial loan or anything, special for it. A lot of people don't know that. So again, college students, if you make that investment, your college student could potentially have their own place. You rent out the other 2, 3 doors, and that's helping that, pay the mortgage or whatever, and additional.
So I was curious what properties you have, kind of like the doors, the ones that you bought for your kids. Are they just single family, or, are they condos, townhouses, actual houses? And then if you have, do you know anything about like new builds? Because I just saw like a lot that's available right across from, the university.
So for me personally, my son is in a condo. Like I said, we were in a fire drill type situation with very, very little to choose from. It worked out well because they have individual bedrooms and bathroom and all of the amenities that are and security, which was really positive for this particular situation. And it's right by a huge medical center. So like I said, for future with traveling nurses, that's going to be a big opportunity for us. So for me, and the lack of planning, I just had luck of the draw, and that's what opportunity that we had. I would say if I had a chance to do it all over again, I would ideally like to have a situation with a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, something as a single family resident. Dealing with HOAs can be challenging in condo unit with college renters. So that's something I would just keep in mind.
And I did a single family home first for my daughter, and then for my son, I did a duplex. So I did go a different route. So again, you learn every time you do something. And my daughter's ready to transition now. And she's, like Lexi said, she's going to go backwards. She's like, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath is probably sufficient for me. I don't want roommates. But she'll rent out her 4-bedroom, and then she has extra income to pay her mortgage on the other side.
We have 2 single family homes, 3-bed, 2-bath on opposite sides of town. But I have clients that they have, their niche is the traveling nurse market, and they love studios, 1-bed, 1-baths. They furnish them, usually multi-family. That's kind of their niche, where they've found a lot of success with that demographic.
Awesome. Thank you.
Rentals in Reno are, few and far between anyway. I mean, there's a demand there. So I think, it's pretty safe. Neither one of my properties where my kids are near the university, although they are college age. And
that's kind of what I was wondering about too. Are all of you in Reno? Or I'm in Southlake, so I'm kind of far away from that. I haven't really looked into the Reno market at all. I have a few properties, but they're actually out of state, like in Iowa and Illinois and Mississippi. And so for me, it was kind of just like a buy something and hold on to it. I have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old. And so like, if I hold on to it, if I still have it when they're older, then I can just get the cash flow and it's paid off, whatever. But as far as like buying something to rent out for college students or something that is appealing.
So, I mean, you can get so much more in other states than you can in Reno. The first thing that I wanted to do was just get them housing here locally, because that's where they're at currently. But we're looking at elsewhere now. I mean, you can get so much more for your money other places. Yeah. But my biggest goal was get them settled, get them at least one property for them, no matter what they decide to do. And then from there, we'll go. And obviously our money can get so much more elsewhere.
Mine are both out of state. So my investment properties are not here in Reno. But again, it was for the purpose of supporting my kids' needs at school, that we can do a 1031 and reevaluate wherever they end up landing permanently.
Ours are here in Reno and Sparks.
And Megan, yours are in Reno as well, right? Yeah.
Sorry, I had me muted. Yes, mine are both in Reno.
So Melissa, I think really whatever works best for you, and just having those investment properties, like you said, and knowing that you have flexibility to do that 1031 exchange wherever you want for that to be later on down the line is perfect.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you everyone again for joining us today. To our panelists, I appreciate everyone's insights coming from different stages of the game when it comes towards family planning. I think this really allows people to think a little bit more about their strategy and possibly reevaluate what it is they are doing and ways that maybe they could add to what they're currently doing. Switch it up and give options out there. And that's really what our goal is talking about what's happening currently in the market, where there's opportunity and different options to be able to engage with your clients in something meaningful for their own planning purposes and family needs. So thank you everyone for joining us. We'll be doing this again next month with another topic going forward and moving along the path of this 2023 market and the ever-changing ebbs and flows of very little inventory, lots of demand with buyers, and where we can see certain niches that can be opportunities for each of you. So have a great day, everyone, and we will see you soon.